Hello and welcome or welcome back. I am Heather and I like to do things. And today I'm working on a special project that is for my stepmom. So here's the story. A couple years ago, I redid a sofa table for her and she's absolutely loved it. It's got her knickknacks and stuff, and it actually sits in like their den where there's a TV and it sits under that and it's got stuff on it. And she decided that she wanted to change up that piece because there's no shelves. You can't hold anything. So she wants to make that more of like a grandkids room, basically, where they can have movies, we can have a game system, they can sit and watch, and she can, oops, kicked my camera. She can store all that stuff in there, but she wants it to look the same as the sofa table. Well, not exactly the same, but like the same style that I did for her. And I was like, absolutely. Send me a picture of what you're thinking and I will get that for you. So some time passes and then she was looking at something. I was like, I told you to send me a picture. I could start, and she was like, I did send you a picture. And so I argued. I was like, no, you didn't. And turns out she did. And she sent me this picture right here. And I was like, absolutely. What now? Why didn't she just buy this? Because she has specific dimensions that she wants. It's going to go exactly where the sofa table is. And as a sofa table, it would be shorter, longer, and not very deep. So she wanted those dimensions, only with like doors and shelves. Got it. And this was kind of a process. She doesn't really make decisions well sometimes. Like, she's like, oh, either way would be good. And so I gave her decisions to make a little bit at a time. So when I first designed it, like, the one she showed me had feet, and she wasn't sure if she wanted feet or to sit on the ground. Had trim. She wasn't sure if she wanted trim or just to be. So I kind of designed it so I could easily change it and add things and do things. And it's like, here's your decisions a little bit at a time. And so it worked out. We're making decisions and we're on our way to getting this done. So I admitted that I was wrong and had the picture, and it was still like another 6 months. Then her birthday came along, and I was like, you know what? I really should start it for her birthday. So I started it for her birthday. It's not finished yet, but I'm making the video in two parts because first I'm going to show you like the how I designed it kind of thing and how I built it, and then we'll do the how I style it kind of thing. So we're going to do that in two parts. Here are my notes, which probably don't make sense to anybody but me. And then see my notes. And there was a lot of mathing yesterday, which my brain doesn't want to do right now because it's summer. And so that was interesting. But I mathed it. I think I'm okay. Now it's time to talk about the actual build and the materials. So in the picture, if you saw, I was basically just making two boxes and then put some stretchers in between to connect those, and I can make that the middle shelves. So I wanted to make the whole thing out of plywood, like 3/4 inch oak veneer, birch veneer, something plywood. And my stepmom was like, oh, plywood. And most people think about plywood and they think of the really rough texture. You can see holes where the knots were. Like, it's just not holes all the way through the plywood, but it's just not pretty, right? That's like a construction grade. It's not pretty. But they make beautiful plywood that would be great for a project. And in fact, a lot of the kitchen cabinets are counters. Cabinets. I said the right word the first time. Kitchen cabinets are made of plywood. Their kitchen cabinets are made of plywood. And like, you can even see it in the doors. Like, they didn't do an edge banding, which you can do an edge banding if you want, but you don't have to. I've used plywood to make my son's stairs, which aren't finished. But that's not the point. And their kitchen cabinets are gorgeous. They are plywood. And there are a lot of things that you won't have to worry about, like twisting or bowing or splitting, which is kind of a problem I ran into during this build and had to do some fixes. So plywood is a great option. But they really did they were like, oh, I don't know. Now Now, plywood is much bigger, it's bulkier, it can be more cumbersome to cut. Valid points. So what we used were project panels, and you have the individual panels that are glued together. Ran into some problems with those. I don't know that I would use those again for this. And you didn't save all that much money versus using plywood. But at the same time, they didn't have pretty plywood when we went to the store. I could have gone to another store, but I didn't. So it is what it is. So if you're building something like this, and honestly, if I were doing this again, I would 100% do plywood and not do this. So just something to think about if you're doing a build. Okay? So let's see how it goes. Okay, for these project panels that are covered in plastic, you still have to check them for cups, bows, twists, all the things, big chunks missing out of them, whatever, splits in the wood. They are wrapped in plastic. I'm going to be saving the plastic because I'm definitely not going to waste that. I would probably never do another big project with these. Like, I almost immediately started regretting that I didn't just tell them I really wanted to do plywood. But I will admit, my setup right here for my miter saw is not great. I just got it, and this is like my first big project with it, and I will admit I'm loving it. So I'm still nervous with it though. So I'm trying to figure out how this works. I don't have a way to set up a stop block or anything, but I cut one board to the size I wanted and then used it as a template to cut all the others. And I did actually get them all the same length. I was pretty happy with that. And if you're like, why don't you use a table saw for some of the things in this build, just a reminder, my table saw died last year when I was doing the Maximalist Challenge, that dresser. Yeah. So I didn't have to rip, that was the benefit. I didn't have to rip these down to size. They are all just using the width that they are and cutting them down to length. Then, using 1x3s, these are going to be the stretchers that go across. I cut those down to size, and I'm going to attach them to the side panels using pocket holes because it's easy. And it will be secure. Also, because there will be, I'm basically building this like two separate boxes that I just attach in the middle. I had to be careful, and I kind of offset the holes. So the holes, like when they were screwing in from different sides of the board, the screws wouldn't hit each other. So I did offset those to make sure that all worked out. Now here's what's funny, because I feel like this shows the importance of dust collection. And I do most of my work outside, so I actually don't have very good dust collection. This is like the one time I really focused on it and I realized I hadn't turned it on. Look at that. I really need to get a better setup. And before you sand, it is absolutely essential that you do a little dance for good luck. Okay, so first put your pencil marks down very lightly, like don't gouge the wood. This just helps you make sure it's all smooth and you got everything. I'm sanding with 120 grit, and I'm using this sander because I have a lot of really big sheets of 120 grit, but I'm out of discs. So it is what it is. It all sands up the same. And again, these are the side pieces. I'm not sanding the stretchers because you won't see those, but I'm getting these sanded before I go any further. Okay, so yesterday, which I didn't record any of this because it was like a trial and error, will this work? This board right here was starting to curve, which just, you know, it's solid wood, it's pine, it's gonna do what it's gonna do. And I was like, well, I really need to stay straight. So I took a 1x2 and put it here. This is going to be the bottom. So put a 1x2 there. So it's flat across this way. And then on the other side, which is going to be the inner part of the shelf, took a 1x2. You see, I forgot that I needed to consider the boards. So yeah. But put this here, and then this will go here. And so this is the inside of the shelf, but I figured it'll also add some support in terms of attaching to the top. And then I also had to do it on this one. These are the two innermost boards, because this one at the bottom, it's a project panel. Well, they were splitting. So for the two outer boards, I may do something similar. Neither one of them is having the same problems, but I might anyway, just for long term. I didn't yesterday because I'm out of 1x2, but for long term support, I might add that as well. So this board here on the other side will keep this from splitting any further, and then it's supported at the top as well. So, okay, and then we'll start with what we're gonna do today. Okay, after talking to my stepmom, we thought adjustable shelves would be a good idea. So I bought this shelf pin jig off of Amazon. I did this instead of the Craig jig because I can vary like the depth of the shelf pins, you know, how far into the board they are. And since I'll have, you know, 3 sections, I need that center part to be offset from the 2 outside sections so that, you know, I don't go all the way through the board. So comes with instructions, and this is really sturdy. It's heavy duty aluminum, it's not plastic, so I'm pretty happy with it. It also comes with 2 different sizes, so you can do smaller shelf pens, or smaller in diameter if you wanted to. And this is the inside of the board, and I'm just talking about how I'm going to offset the pieces, or the holes, to put the shelf pins in. And it also comes with a little stopper thing so you can line everything up good. Okay, so something important that I had to pay attention to was which side. So I had marked all my boards with an F for front, so I knew this was the front part, but it's the front that's going to sit here. So if this is where the shelves are going to go, this is where I need to put the shelf pins, and not here, because I would have messed up everything. So
I'm starting to consider whether I actually want to buy my own.
So I decided to mark this front shelf, so I'd remember where to put my shelf pins. So once it was time to mark everything, I did the completely reasonable thing and spent an unreasonable amount of time trying to make sure everything was right. Like, I cut most of it, but I marked it and then remeasured and then marked it and remeasured and marked. I didn't just do twice. Like, I just kept, I was so afraid I was going to mess these up. And then when I go to the other piece, I kept checking to make sure, like, is it the same? Is it not? What if I mess it up? Yeah. Okay. So you can see the little pieces underneath, and those, it also helps if you put this on the right direction. Just, there's a little lip, they catch the edge of the board, and that's, you screw those down to hold them, or hold the jig in place, which actually works really well. I didn't have any problems with it slipping. I mean, it also didn't seem to leave any marks on the board. There weren't any phantom marks that I was like, I don't know how that got there. So I was pretty happy with that. And then you just tighten those down. And I'm going to cut that so you don't have to watch me tighten it all the way down. And you cross your fingers and hope that you have everything done right. And I cut a lot here. So here's the little collet that comes with it. You just set the collet at the correct depth. Clamp your piece down, because you know that's important as well. and then have a solid chuckle at yourself because you forgot to think about the depth of the jig, not just the depth of the shelf pin. Yeah. So I rechecked that, reset the depth of the collet on the drill bit. I was like, whatever that thing's called. And then I just started drilling. And I have one successful hole in the board. I'm pretty excited. And then, in just a second, that is why you should be checking your collet, because mine slipped. And I had a hole all the way through the shelf, which now I have to patch. There are worse things. But, so what I started doing was, after I fixed the collet, checking it constantly. And like every 2 or 3 holes, I would tighten the collet again. I almost couldn't get it back on off of there. I made sure it was really tight. So, yeah. And then something I noticed that I'm going to have to fix. It's like, that's a good depth, but then that one's not. So I did have to go through and fix that. And I'm fairly certain that is user error. I don't think there was anything wrong with the jig. It was easy to fix, but still. Would have been easier if I hadn't had to fix it in the first place. Okay, so here I am back to drilling holes. And look, I'm going to retighten the collet repeatedly. Then I added tape. Do I think it would have stopped the collet from slipping? No. Maybe, I don't really know. But the collet didn't slip again. So, was it the tape or the fact that I just, tightened it constantly? And there's the little pin that goes in there just to make sure it can't slip. Just slip it in the hole and it slips in one of the shelf pins. And you can make sure everything's aligned. I will admit, I drilled the holes entirely too close to the top. There's no possible way to put a shelf that high, so it was probably kind of silly, but whatever. It was a learning experience, and I am overall happy with how it went. Okay, so something I realized I should have done, and I didn't. Luckily, it works out, and those two still line up, is do side to side. Instead of just measuring both of them, I'm actually side to side, and then measure across, like line up the bottoms, measure across, and then go from there. Because if they weren't, I could have messed everything up. But luckily it all worked out. And the other ones are still even, so. You don't want wobbly shelf pins. So, lining these up at the bottom, because that's going to be my reference point. Like everything even there. And if I have to shave stuff down at the top, I can. So. Anyway. What you do? I'm making a line to line everything up so I can put my shelf pins in. The holes for my shelf pins. Okay. I'm making sure my line goes across both boards.
Trying to make it perfect.
Well, I don't want to see wobbly.
Hi, camera.
But here, I spent all this time building this for you and it wobbles. Yay! Okay, now I should be able to be even, and I'm just going to line everything up and repeat the holes. Okay. So now I'm working on, I assembled the two boxes and then I'm working on the shelf pins. So this will be like the center part. This will be the visible part. And with this one, instead of putting the holes at this depth, I went a little bit further in so they won't overlap. And the more I'm saying this, the more I wish I had gone with plywood, because I just, it's warping a little bit more than I can make it work. And it's kind of funny because my dad was like, well, if we don't do plywood, you don't have to rip it down, you know, it'd be easier. And I, sorry. And the problem was, they didn't have any pretty, or any nice plywood that I would want to use at the first store I went to. And I should have just said, you know what, let's go to another store. And I did. That's on me. Which, it's okay. This is gonna look good. It's not a problem. It's just, this one actually, this box is actually really good. It's all square. The other one, because those boards were the ones that were kind of warping a little bit more, so it's gonna be a little bit more, I think it's still mostly square, but. And of course, I did not record any of the actual building of this, but what I have is the two side pieces attached with stretchers, and the bottom will hold the shelf, and the top is for support for trim, and two of these, which are 18 inches wide, and then they'll be attached with stretchers similarly across the center. Now it's time to fill that hole I, put in there from the shelf pin. Whatever. I put a shelf pin on one side, and then I cut a dowel. Luckily, I knew exactly what size I needed. But I put the shelf pin to make sure that I didn't make the dowel too deep. And then once I got it in there, I just cut it off. I used the sandpaper so I didn't destroy the wood. And then I'll just sand it down and all will be well. And then it was time to patch these holes. When I was attaching those supports, I got a little bit overexcited with the drill and the pre-drilling and just drilled right through everything, including my work table. So I had to fill those. It'll be on one of the inside of the shelves, but you could still see those. So, okay, here what I'm doing is I'm putting pocket holes on these pieces because I'm going to use the pocket holes to attach the face frame. Also, this was supposed to be the back of the piece, and I messed that up. The other side says front. But when I had to take it into my house to get everything level and flat, and then in the back and forth, I didn't turn it around, and I didn't think about it, so I messed that up. Does it still work? Yeah, but I had it a certain direction because of which side was prettier. But anyways, so I used pocket holes on these pieces to attach the face frame. Some of the stretchers you can see are, I'll just drill through those, and I don't have to do pocket holes on those. But also, I realized I never showed you how I put these together because I didn't record it. I basically just made two boxes and then attached them with stretchers. And the original pieces that I cut actually go all the way to the ground. That's what the whole piece is resting on. Because I wasn't sure if she wanted feet or not at this point. Alright, so then it was time to do the face frames, and I wanted to do mitered corners, which I have never done on a miter saw. So I have a question. Would it have been better to stand the board up and cut the miter that direction rather than cutting it the way it is here where it's flat? Let me know down in the comments. Would that have been better? So this was a lot of back and forth. I was cutting the pieces individually just to make sure everything fit as it went. But I was having to work inside because that's my level surface. So what I did was I took it in, lined it up with the piece that's already attached that I didn't record that because of course I didn't. And then cut it. And then went back and attached it. And then to attach it, there's a little back and forth. I was like, I need like 5 more hands to do this. But I just clamped it on there. And again, I'm working on the floor to make sure it was flat. Because my workbench isn't big enough to set something like this size on and actually have the side sitting flat. So. And this was those moments I felt like a complete mess. Like, I kept dropping stuff. I actually ended up kicking the box of screws over. It was just it was funny. I was like, oh my gosh, I should quit. I should also change the camera angle. Yeah, so you can actually see what I'm doing. Not that I was doing anything all that crazy. And now I feel like it's a good time. If you feel like you enjoy this content and you want to support me, please like and subscribe. That helps me. I also have links to my Amazon wish list, or buy me a coffee if you feel so inclined. But just liking actually helps me a lot. So, and share if you think anybody else might like it. Okay. I did the same thing on the longer pieces, but I clamped them in place. I did take it back inside to attach it and use a level to make sure I actually got it level. Because my driveway is not level. I know that shocks you if you look at my driveway, but it's not. So once I had this clamped in place, I made sure it was where I wanted on the other side. I just marked it so I could cut it. Then I can attach it. And these pieces I would measure and cut to length to fit each space, just in case. I was like, just want to make sure everything's good. And I don't show me putting glue on there, but I did. And I was going to clamp it, but my clamp wasn't big enough. And then, then I couldn't get my red nailer to fire. So I just had to take the battery out, and there it goes. Now watch right here. So this is why you move your hand straight out the other side. Yep, would have gotten myself. So make sure your hand's out of the way. I do have to go and fix that later. Yay! And see right here? Wipe the glue away. Yep, I had glue. I'm through. Covered up all my nail holes. I just slapped that on there. Put a little bit, just kind of shoved it in the cracks. So when I sand it, hopefully you won't see those. I did use some caulk right here. I also ended up, this just felt, I didn't like the way this felt. I just stuck my hand in that. It's still wet. So I added some screws, obviously countersink, and I'm going to cover that up. And then this feels more secure. So I like that better. And now we're to the point where we need shelves in our cabinet. Can we talk about the stickers they put on wood though? Like, this came wrapped in plastic with a paper insert. We could have put the barcode somewhere else. Like, what? We need a better solution. Comment down below. What is a better solution than stickers on the boards? Also, if there is a sticker, what's a good way to remove the sticky stuff? Because I don't think Goo Gone's it. It seems a little oily. I don't know that that's going to be it. Let me know. What do you think? Okay, what I find funny right here is that the other two, I had to keep putting on my miter saw and just shave the edge off until I got it to fit. And I was going to show that, and then this one fits without doing that. So, yay! And of course, you know what's going to come next. We got to do some sanding. So, mark my boards. Any area that seemed a little, the pieces didn't quite come together as smooth, I made sure to mark those a little bit more to make sure to get those flat. Now, I also sanded the rest of the piece. that I did with 120 and didn't go any higher because, look, even my sander's over this sanding. Because of the look I'm going for on it. The shelf boards are going to be stained, so I sanded 120 and then went up to 220. I didn't do 180 because they're all actually very smooth to begin with. It's not like a lot of boards that you would get. And you just keep sanding. And if you're not a fan of sanding, this, I don't know what to tell you, because there's just going to be a lot of sanding required. Look, just get a comfortable position. Don't stare down at your sanding for too long, though, because you will get like a crick in your neck. And then you got to make sure to check your sandpaper and change out your sandpaper. Probably more often than you think you're going to need to. I'm not going to lie. And I'm walking off to check on my daughter. She was walking the dogs. She's doing training with the dogs to walk them. But I go check on her because we have some problems with loose dogs. So here she is. She's running with Ollie. I was standing so long I was falling asleep. I'm just kidding. I didn't really fall asleep. It's just for the drama of the video. And then, once I finished this, I actually wasn't done sanding because I still had the two longer pieces. So there's the bottom shelf pieces for each section, and then there's an adjustable shelf for each section. So there was a lot of sanding. And then, I don't know if you noticed the big cut I had in my table. I bondoed it when I was putting Bondo on the console, so I sanded it. I mean, you just never know what you might need to sand. There's always a lot of sanding to be done. And guess what? Guess what it's time for? Not more sanding, if that was your thought. Okay, so here's where we are. I'm actually happy with it. Hopefully she will be too. But here's kind of where I am. First of all, this is why I'm recording and stopping where I am here, because I'm ready to start doing the painting and stuff, and I wanted to have this done for. So for the doors, here. But the reason, and I'll have a barn door track, but the reason I'm doing this here, and they're not finished. They won't just look like that. They'll have a trim and all that. But the reason I'm stopping here is because I'm not 100% certain. Okay, you couldn't hear this part because I need a microphone. So I have the doors cut to width, but I don't have them cut to length yet. So that's why they're not finished, because I have to figure stuff out. I've never done the barn door rail on, so I'm going to do the rail first, then figure out where everything's going to hang, and then finish the doors, just to be sure. But both doors have already been cut down to width and are just waiting to be cut down to length. And then I'll put a frame and stuff on them. Okay, the shelves are done. I'm going to scooch in a little bit. Okay, but the shelves are done and in. And the shelves right here are going to be adjustable. These will be adjustable. I may have put left too much in there, but this one won't matter as much. But on the sides, for these to be adjustable, right, I don't want to make it easy to get, I want that to be easy to adjust or take it out or whatever. So I did leave a little bit of room there. That's kind of where we are. I have not done the top. This is not the right board for the top. That's why the top's not done. I haven't had a chance to go get the board. I haven't had a chance to go get the board I need. Also, I have to borrow a router from my brother to route the edges, but you can see this one isn't long enough. You can't see because I don't have it all the way over there. See, this one isn't long enough. Because after we bought the board, we changed kind of the plan. So, and here is a side view. It's all finished out, ready to be primed and then painted. And I'm curious, what do you think? What are you liking most about it so far? What's something that you might have done a little bit differently? I'd love to hear from you down below, and make sure to stay tuned because we're gonna look at how I actually finish this whole thing up and make it look beautiful. And as always, thanks for watching, and be sure to stick around to find out what Heather does next time.